Hello everyone, I'm Weiling Luo from Shenyang University, China. My topic is how to identify boundary conditions with contrasty metric. A goal-oriented requirement engineering has been an active research area. It aims to correct software requirement specifications. In this area, goal conflict analysis deals with the inconsistency via the three stages: identification, assessment, and resolution. In this paper, we consider a weak inconsistency, that is, identification divergence. A divergence is captured by a boundary condition, BC for short. Intuitively, the BC characterizes the particular circumstances where the goals of the requirement cannot be satisfied as a whole. Let's look at an example. The requirement specification is about the main pump. The main property is that the pump is turned on for two time steps. Then in the following one, the water level is no high. And there is two goals. One is that when the water level is high, the system should turn on the pump. The other is that when there is a math in the environment, the pump should be turned off. We can find the BC for phi 1. It captures the circumstances where the high water level and the methane occur at the same time in the future. Under this situation, the two goals are unsatisfiable simultaneously. Identifying the BC is the first stage in the goal conflict analysis. With introducing the magic, the genetic algorithm, the effect of automatic BC identification has been greatly improved. We noticed that as the number of identified BCs increases, the assessment stages and the resolution stage become very expensive and even impractical. Therefore, in this paper, we focus on how to filter out redundant BCs. As far as we know, the generality metric is the only metric to filter out redundant BCs. Existing work always computes a general BC set to filter out less general BCs. Unfortunately, we observe that a set of general BCs still retains a large number of redundant BCs. Let's consider an example. Following example 1, we also find that phi 3 is characterized the 5 circumstances. The generality metric cannot evaluate phi 1 and phi 3. We find phi 3 is more likely than phi 1. Therefore, we will recommend phi 3 to engineers first. Note that the red labeled circumstances they all violate the non-flooding goal. Therefore, the red labeled circumstances cannot capture the divergence in reality. After remove the red labeled circumstances, we refine the phi 3 as a phi 3 plan. Now, we find phi 1 is more likely than phi 3 plan. This motivation example shows that there is no method to filter out redundant BCs in final grade. Now, we introduce our main contribution, contrasty metric. We first introduce the definition weakness. Intuitively, the weakness of the BC indicates why it's a BC. It's not difficult to see from the definition that if F is also a BC, the phi is redundant compared to F. We defined the contrasty metric and the contrastive BC set. Intuitively, the contrastive BCs capture different divergences. There are two highlights of the contrastive metric, final grade and meaningful. In summary, we argue that a set of contrastive BCs should be recommended to engineers rather than a set of general BCs. To evaluate our metric, we design a post-processing framework, PPFC for short. Our first research question is that, compared with the generality metric, what are the advantages of the contrasting metric? For the competitor, we combine the generality metric and the likelihood to fill out and sort the species. We evaluate on 16 different cases. Table 2 shows the results about the number of BC recommended by different metric. Overall, our method can solve all the cases that can be solved by BC server. From the second column, it confirms that the existing BC server can return a large number of the BCs. The decreasing BC size from the second column and the fourth column illustrates like a lot of BC identified by BC server um, are redundant in most cases. Compare the third column with the fourth column. The contrasty metric can reduce the number of the BCs more significantly. We further carried out case studies. For all cases, the contrastive BC set is much smaller than the general BC set, and the contrastive BC set is the subset of the general BC set. It confirms that the contrastive metric is the more fine-grained metric than the generality metric. Uh, the result the results also show that a set of general BCs still retains the BCs that represent the same divergence. In addition, we also observe that the contrastive BCs rank lower in most cases. It shows that the circumstances that cannot describe the divergences lead to the mistake of the likelihood and generality metric. This experimental results confirms that the highlights of the contrastive metric and the site of the contrastive species is a better recommendation for generators. Other surprising discovery is that a lot of species identified by the state-of-the-art species server captured by the same divergences in most cases. It's also inspired us whether we can design a framework like consider the contrastive metric during the BC identification stage. In this work, we first proposed the BC termination condition. Based on the BC termination condition, we designed the joint framework, JFC for short. Our second research question is that what's the performance of the JFC for producing a contrastive BC set compared with PPFC? Table 4 shows the overall performance of the PPFC and the JFC. The result is clear. If JFC meets the BC termination condition, the running time is significantly reduced by the JFC. Now we conclude our work. In this paper, we discover the drawbacks caused by the generality metric. We propose a new metric, contrasty, to deal with the drawbacks. The contrastive metric can mildly distinguish the difference between species. Experimental results show the advantages of the contrastive metric, namely, it filters out the species capturing the same divergences. It helps to avoid closely reworks. In addition, we have designed a joint framework to improve the performance of the post-processing framework. Okay, that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Live. Welcome everyone. I hope you enjoyed Waylon's presentation. I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you so much. I found this was a really interesting contribution. And yeah, we're waiting for some answers to come into the chat. So if you have questions, let me just type in that chat so you know where the chat window is. And as long as no questions come in, I get to ask you something. So I would love to make sure Oh, there we go. First question already, Bashar. Hi, Bashar. Good to see you. I mean, see you. See your cat icon in the chat. Waylin, Bashar is asking, does the customer have a role in evaluating or deciding on the boundary conditions?
Uh, Customer, the the problem of boundary condition uh, is faced to software engineers. So it is not targeted to specific customers. So normally there are software engineers when they
Mhm.
do like their requirements engineering, they will use the boundary conditions.
Right. Yes. So Bashar's question is, well, when you have the boundary conditions, would you then go back to your customer and ask them to validate the boundary conditions? As in, here, dear customer, look, did we find the correct boundary conditions? Would you say that these are the right ones? Do you do that?
Uh, no, the innovation of our work is reflected in that considering the existing work does not combine resolving the divergences for effectively filtering out pieces. So
Mhm.
our work uh, is firstly filtering out the redundant basis, and it will it is it is faced to software engineers.
Mhm.
They can discuss with their customers or their managers to design how to fix the problem.
Okay. Okay, good. And so, um, if I understood your work right, I I had to really rack my brain around this. There was a lot of formulas in your presentation, but I hope I got it. So um, the idea was the generality metric. So I was trying to find an example for the boundary conditions in natural language words, so it was easier for me to understand. And you used the example of the ambulance service, and so I was thinking um, an example boundary condition could be the road is underwater and there is a hurt person on the other side. That would be one way to express a boundary condition for an ambulance service. And then there could be another boundary condition that says the bridge is blocked and there is a hurt person on the other side. So then I have two example boundary conditions that could be redundant because in both cases it seems that I'm not able to get to the hurt person. And so, if I understood your work right, the generality metric tries to find redundancy, but it may or may not catch this redundancy. And so
Yeah.
then you invented a contrast metric that would hopefully find this redundancy. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so, mm, would you have an example? And I know that may be difficult on the spot, but a an example in natural language that could explain what a contrast metric is, or is that only possible on a formula level?
Uh, it can explain in natural language, and in our paper or our presentation before the Q&A, we can
Mhm.
see that we 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 bring out our motivation example. It is in the scene of a mind pump example. In our paper, it also says uh, uh, we discussed three situations that we express in formulas when we write the paper, but it is actually easy to understand using natural language. That the high water level and the gas occur at the same time. That
Mhm.
example, we can see that when using our metric, uh, we can filter out the other two formulas and find the ones that uh, worth value most.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good, good. Thank you. So, what would you say was the most interesting piece about this work? Like, what did you find either fascinating, or what did you find was really hard to solve?
Uh, I think the most difficult part of our work is that we trying to combine our post-processing framework with the search process together to join to form our joint framework. We did we did trying to combine the two steps together, and we bring out a new um, termination condition when we finding species. So in that part, we did do a lot of experiments, and we trying to find out that if we could get better results.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Let's see, Bashar has another follow-up question. Follow up on my first question. Can the metric flag the ambiguity in natural language, or are they assumed to be correct? Okay, that's a really so when we have natural language requirements, is there a way how your metric can say, oh, there is ambiguity here? Or does your metric assume that the requirements are all correct and unambiguous as they are?
Um, uh, because uh, because uh, we did this in the linear time logic formula, and we
Mhm.
don't it is not expressed in natural language. It is expressed in formulas. So I don't understand what what it refers to
Ah,
ambiguity in natural language.
okay, then maybe we had a misunderstanding in my previous question because I had asked, do you also work with this on natural language examples? And you were explaining the example to me, and I think some of us may have understood, oh, we can use your framework also on natural language requirements, but it only works on formula representations. Is that correct?
Yes, so far it only works at the formula form.
Okay, so that means we have to go through the effort of making sure that we have translated the requirements into formulas that are correct. So that is the step where the ambiguity has to be solved. And then your system will take over from there and will find redundancies.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for that. So, what is the piece you're working on now? Because you had to submit this work already like half a year ago, longer than half a year ago. So I'm sure you have done some of the future work in the meantime. Is there anything that you can tell us that you have been doing since where you say, oh, we just completed the next study and here is an idea of what that brought?
Uh, uh, we, we did this work, and we can provide a reasonable set of species after we assessing them. So our future work may focus on resolving the divergences.
Mhm.
Yes. So now we're trying to extend our contrastive metric to the assessment stage and the next resolution stage.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. And we're out.